You like Refn? His early work was a little too European for my taste, but in 2011, he really came into his own, commercially and artistically, with the release of his hit film, Drive.
What do you do?
I drive.
That's literally me. Literally me, dude.
I like to dissect girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane?
Oh, literally me! That's me! That's so me!
Master Payne, it is a great honor having you beating random people in our town.
That's literally me! In recent years, a new film genre has emerged out of the chaos of our culture. And what's weird is that it's not made up of entirely new movies. There are some new films in this genre, of course, but overall, it's the classification that's new, not the films. This genre is literally me. Or maybe Sigma Cinema is a better label. It's a loose collection of movies that typically star men on the fringes of society. They're usually regular guys who just snap. But sometimes they're complete psychopaths. In A Clockwork Orange, Alex lives an extremely hedonistic lifestyle. How is it then that it falls under the same umbrella as something like Falling Down? As I thought more and more about this concept, I realized the vast diversity that existed within this new genre. These films present different male archetypes, but how do they all relate to each other? Surely there's a through line. Do people connect with these characters ironically? Or are they just using a veil of irony to point to a deeper, more sincere truth? I know we all naturally lump all these films together, but why? Let's take a look at some of the major Literally Me characters just to see if we can find the dots to connect. I can only talk about a couple here or else the video would be entirely too long and boring. If I don't mention your favorite Literally Me movie, then I think you should honestly just, cope. Nah, don't worry. This video is part of my series called Literally Me, and I will be making a lot of these videos for this series in the near future, so stay tuned. And any femcells out there, I got you covered as well. Let's look at today's roster of men who are quite literally just like me. Patrick Bateman. He's young, jacked, has an amazing skincare routine, drinks like a fish, and can get any lady he wants so long as he's got the money. And he has the money. Bateman feels like a satire on the materially obsessed yuppies of the 80s, and this lack of meaning that comes out of this lifestyle of obsessing over clothes and restaurants manifests itself as a desire to kill. Or is it all in his head? Does that even matter? Bateman wants to fit into a world that he despises. He is a husk of a man, albeit a hilarious one. It's hard to know if he likes the music he listens to or the food he eats, as he qualifies their value with reviews he read rather than what seems like his actual opinions. Bateman's life isn't just about the pleasures of conformity and the importance of trends. It's about how these things consume our lives, our cultures, and turn us into NPCs who just want to destroy it all. Defense, aka William Foster. What happens when the machine rejects one of its cogs? Michael Douglas's character, who we know as Defense because that's what his license plate says, is a Department of Defense worker who has lost his job. He helped build missiles that probably caused untold death and destruction in foreign countries on behalf of the USA. He was well regarded in his field, but when he was no longer useful, when he was no longer economically viable, he was spit out. He lost everything: his job, his home, his wife, his daughter, and arguably his sanity. And on one hot LA morning, he finally cracks. He abandons his car and sets out on a journey across Los Angeles to attend his daughter's birthday party, leaving behind him a wake of destruction. Defense is the embodiment of the mid-20th century man. It's not a coincidence that, at the beginning, he wants to turn back the prices to 1965. He's a man out of time. He embodies the 1950s American ideal, but he's stuck in an empire in decline. He fights against what his country has become: increased prices, fascists, gang violence, an elite class who hold disdain for ordinary citizens, and America itself. All the while, he spouts ideas of what American society should be: freedom of speech, the customer is always right, and so on.
Just standing up for my rights as a consumer.
But confronted by the law and told that he's the bad guy, Foster asks,
I'm the bad guy?
Yeah.
is he? He obviously has personal responsibility for his actions, but it's undeniable that he is the product of a sick society. We cheer for him as we use him to vent our own frustrations on the world, even if we wouldn't dare to repeat his actions. It's his straddling of the line between good and evil that makes him so compelling. Billy Brown. This is a literally me deep cut, but it shouldn't be. Vincent Gallo excellently portrays Billy Brown, the protagonist of his breakout film Buffalo 66. The film opens with Billy leaving prison, racked by intrusive memories and an intense need to pee. He searches for a place to relieve himself while building a web of lies to conceal from his family the fact that he spent the last few years in the can. Under the stress induced by the retention of his urine, he calls his parents to let them know he's coming to visit with his wife, and shortly after, he kidnaps a woman, Layla, and forces her to pretend to be his wife so that he can keep up the illusion.
This is acting, all right? You're my wife. So that means you adore me, you love me, you cherish me. Jesus Christ, you can't live without me.
Brown is a troubled man. His mom blames him for making her miss the Buffalo Bills Super Bowl win because he was born on the same day. His parents know nothing about him and don't seem to care about him one bit. Nothing he can do will make them proud of him. They don't even know that he's a champion bowler. He's also been in love with the same girl since he was a kid, a girl who barely knows that he exists. In short, he doesn't know what it's like to be loved, and he aims to avenge his loveless life by assassinating a former kicker for the Buffalo Bills. But Layla does her best to soften his heart and stop him from further ruining his life. He's a 30-year-old virgin with a propensity for having gamer moments and really, and I mean really, dislikes the touch of a woman. How much more like me can he be?
You know why I didn't have a girlfriend? Huh? Because there was nobody that I liked.
Tyler Durden. The unnamed protagonist of Fight Club looked at Tyler Durden and said, "Wow, he is literally me." Tyler Durden is the hidden rebel within all of us who exist in this corporate IKEA furniture-filled rat race of a society we call the West. Durden isn't just an anarchist, he's an agent of chaos. He splices adult films into regular films, he pees and drinks, and he performs acts of violence. Through Durden, the protagonist moves out of the normie circle of life and into the fringes of society in order to embrace his masculinity. Fincher and Palahniuk take all this to its logical extreme, as the Fight Club morphs from a group of men fighting each other for fun to a group of men fighting all of society. Is Durden real? Is he some schizophrenic hallucination of the protagonist? Or is he the real person within the protagonist? Maybe Edward Norton is the fake persona, a mask made to fit into society and live by its rules, while Brad Pitt is the real man under the mask. We live in a world where testosterone levels are falling, conformity is on an upswing, and our lives have become more and more sedentary as the wage cage has moved from the cubicles of an office building into our homes. Think about how working from home has turned our sanctuary of our non-work life into a workspace. We cannot escape the grips of whatever large corporation we work for. Trust me, I cannot escape YouTube. But as our culture puts more and more pressure onto us to conform to whatever new ideals it purports, or as it takes away the very essence of ourselves and being, it lights a fire within us to resist. When we see Tyler Durden in Fight Club, we see on screen our same desire and motivation to stand up for ourselves against a crushing society. Travis Bickle.
You talking to me? Well, then who the hell else are you talking? You talking to me?
Travis Bickle might be my favorite character of this bunch, and I'll be going more in depth on him in my next video. He is arguably the granddaddy of the Literally Me characters, as Taxi Driver released all the way back in 1976. Bickle's a complex man. He's a Vietnam War vet living a modest life in New York City. He has trouble sleeping, maybe due to PTSD, so he works long hours as a taxi driver. Unlike the other drivers, he doesn't discriminate. He drives anyone, anywhere, and because of this, he witnesses the underbelly of American society each and every night. Bickle is perceptive and, at times, spiritual. He sees the chaos around him and knows that something must be done, turning first to assisting and then attempting to assassinate a politician before he sets his sights on freeing an underage prostitute. On the flip side, he's intensely socially awkward. He attends the adult film theater and sees couples there, so he takes Betsy on a date there. When she protests and leaves, he doesn't understand. Heck, he awkwardly messes up his narration to us, the audience, and has to restart. His frustrations and anger towards the state of New York and to his own life transform into a need for cathartic violence.
I really want to... I got some bad ideas in my head.
The US government trained him to kill in a foreign country, but now he's going to use that training on domestic soil. By purifying his body and styling his hair in a mohawk, he evokes the image of a warlike Native American. Thus, Bickle declares war on the scum of the streets. He becomes a Western hero in a modern world. He is the man who stood up. You might be wondering, where's the driver from Drive 2011 and Arthur Fleck from Joker 2019? Well, a couple years ago, I made entire videos about Drive and Joker where I touched on their Sigma appeal. So if you want to hear me talk about them, I'll leave links to them in the description below. So what brings all these characters together, and what brings them together with characters I didn't talk about, like Kay, Joker, Driver, Battinson, Riddler, Alex, Louis Bloom, Donnie Darko, or what have you? At their core, they're all troubled men, dealing with some sort of trauma, mental illness, or a mix of both. They live in a detached society that increasingly resents them, in which they increasingly despise in turn. They have different ways of dealing with this reality, sure. Louis Bloom from Nightcrawler cynically moves up the corporate ladder to find success, while Riddler just sows chaos and kills corrupt officials. No matter their paths, methods, or goals, most if not all of them are motivated by some sense of alienation. So why shouldn't we connect with these characters on a deep level? We live in an increasingly alienating world. As our social interactions move from real life to the internet, our encounters with friends, families, and strangers become more and more soulless. We might be able to befriend and hold conversations with people on the other side of the planet, but we're talking to a screen. These people might be interested in the same niche subjects as we are, and so subcultures form on the internet. But as more subcultures form, our own culture becomes more splintered. It's great in some ways, but bad in others. But think, we can get all the social interaction we need from the comfort of our bedrooms. But is it really socialization, or is it just a simulation of such? When we talk with people online, the normal constraints and additions of real-life interactions just don't exist. People are more vicious because they're not looking at a real person, but just an avatar. Misunderstandings also arise because we can only see what others say through text or voice. There isn't that much context or body language to clue us into the real meanings of the words. On top of all of that, news is fed to us online like an IV. We're inundated with news, real and fake, that's designed to elicit an emotional reaction from us. If we're online, it's hard to escape it. And if we're not careful, it can easily lead us to political extremes. I can't discuss Sigma males in films without talking about dating. I get it. We all want our state-mandated girlfriends. Just as we can hang out with friends from our Cheeto-stained bed, we can ask girls out in the same way. Dating apps like Tinder and Bumble reduce romance to a mobile game. We make commodities out of our bodies and a caricature of our personalities for others to consume, while treating everyone else on the app like a product, rather than like a person. And if Tinder doesn't work out for us, then there's the adult industry that we can turn to get our temporary shots of pleasure. We can eat, drink, work, have a social life, and have a sex life without leaving our homes. Yet, it doesn't fulfill us. It all feels hollow. We no longer feel like people, but like rats in cages. Loneliness is rising, and it's a problem that we all need to address head on. Lonely characters in films, those that exist on the fringes of society, those that feel a sense of alienation, they resonate with us because we're struggling with those same problems. Now, more than ever. We're probably not struggling to the same extent as the fictional characters, but these characters provide us a sense of catharsis, or potentially, they help us lonely guys figure out how to better our lives. This is totally non-scientific, but it does seem like there aren't that many kinds of movies made nowadays. People, especially young men, are starving for these kinds of stories. We saw the reception to Joker, Good Time, The Lighthouse, and The Batman. If Hollywood wants to tap into the market, make a lot of money, and capture this part of the zeitgeist, then they should make more of these movies. But that would mean funding movies that explore more uncomfortable truths. They'd rather make crap that spouts whatever the latest corporate talking point is, and only worsen the problem of social alienation and loneliness. But I was thinking, these kinds of movies were the norm back in the 70s. Just look at 5 Easy Pieces, The Last Detail, The King of Marvin Gardens, The Last Picture Show, or practically any of the Scorsese movies from this time. These movies impacted the culture tremendously and still stand as classics because they had their fingers on the pulse of culture. Sadly, with the Disneyfication of movies right now, I don't have much faith in mainstream films filling that niche. The Batman and Joker came close, but at the end of the day, they didn't hit nearly as hard as Taxi Driver. And I'm afraid that the studios will learn the wrong lesson with the Batman and Joker. The cynical side of me thinks that maybe they think that just making the movies brooding and dark will get them the desired result, all while failing to connect on any deep level with the audience. I just hope that sometime soon, a new wave of filmmakers can make movies for the people, that they'll make films that cause us to laugh and to cry, and to point at the screen and say, "That's literally me."